Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the veil between the seen and the unseen becomes thin, when an illustration is more than words, when it pierces through the noise, when it shakes the very foundation of the soul. And today you will hear one such illustration, one you will never forget. Imagine standing on the edge of time itself, looking upon the vast expanse of eternity. You see before you a grand scale, a balance weighing two realities. One side holds the riches, pleasures, and distractions of this fleeting world. The other holds the weight of truth, righteousness, and destiny. A man walks to the scale. He clutches all that he has worked for, his success, his achievements, his possessions, his pleasures. He places them on one side, convinced that they will tip the balance in his favor. But then on the other side, a single word is placed: eternity. And in an instant, the weight of eternity crashes down, rendering everything he held onto as weightless as dust in the wind. Life is filled with choices, and each choice carries weight. Some seem small and insignificant, while others shape the course of our destiny. Yet, whether great or small, every decision ultimately tips the scale in one direction or another. This scale is not a mere metaphor. It is the reality of every human soul. It is the balance upon which all things are measured. The seen versus the unseen, the temporary versus the eternal, the perishable versus the imperishable. Picture a great and ancient scale standing in the midst of eternity, a balance so vast that it stretches beyond time itself. On one side, the things of this world begin to pile up: money, possessions, status, fame, power, pleasure, and all the pursuits that captivate the hearts of men. These are the things most strive for, the things they wake up early for, toil late into the night for, and even sacrifice relationships, values, and purpose for. These are the things that glitter like gold in the eyes of the world, promising fulfillment, security, and happiness. But what happens when these things are weighed? What happens when the scale is tested? For all their allure, these things are bound to the temporal. Money fades, possessions decay, status is forgotten, power is lost, and pleasure is fleeting. What was once cherished and fought for eventually becomes meaningless, dust swept away by the winds of time. The wealthiest men of the past have left their fortunes behind. The most powerful rulers have been reduced to names in history books. The entertainers and celebrities who once captivated the world now exist only in fading memories. What good is a life spent accumulating the temporary when the eternal is ignored? On the other side of the scale lies something far different. It is unseen, yet it holds greater weight than all the treasures of the world combined. It is the weight of eternity, the weight of purpose, truth, righteousness, and divine calling. This side of the scale is not built on what is perishable, but on what lasts forever. A person may have nothing in the eyes of the world, no riches, no fame, no power, yet if they carry the weight of eternity, they possess something far greater. There is a deception that has persisted since the beginning of time, the belief that what is temporary can truly satisfy, that if one only had enough wealth, success, recognition, or pleasure, they would finally find fulfillment. And yet, time and again, the richest, most successful, and most powerful among us have found themselves empty, longing, searching for something more. Why? Because their scales were unbalanced. They lived for what would one day pass away while ignoring what was everlasting. But the one who understands the weight of eternity sees beyond the illusion. They do not measure life by what is seen, but by what is unseen. They do not chase after treasures that rust, but seek after treasures that cannot be taken away. When their deeds are placed upon the scale, they do not crumble under the weight of meaninglessness, for they carry something far greater: faith, love, truth, purpose, and a life lived in alignment with the eternal. There will come a day when every scale will be tested, when all that was once sought after, fought for, and valued will be weighed. And in that moment, it will become clear what truly held weight and what was merely dust in the wind. The question is not whether the scale exists. The question is, what will be found on your side of it? From the moment a person is born, the world presents a path, a system of values that define success. Society teaches that to be fulfilled, one must accumulate wealth, build status, gain influence, and achieve great things in the eyes of others. The world applauds those who climb the highest mountains of success, who secure power, who attain luxuries and pleasures. People work tirelessly, sacrificing time, health, relationships, and sometimes even their integrity to reach the top. They chase after financial security, career advancement, social recognition, and the fleeting pleasures of life, believing that once they grasp these things, they will finally find peace and contentment. The illusion of success is so strong that it blinds many to the deeper realities of life. A man may labor for decades to build a business empire, believing that wealth will grant him freedom. He may rise to prominence, receiving admiration and respect from the world. But what happens when he achieves everything he set out to do and still feels empty? What happens when the mansion, the luxury cars, the extravagant vacations, and the power he holds over others do not bring him the satisfaction he expected? The world does not prepare people for the inevitable realization that success, as defined by society, is an illusion. Fame, wealth, and power are all temporary. The applause of men eventually fades, and those who were once celebrated are forgotten. The possessions that once seemed so valuable eventually deteriorate or pass into the hands of another. A person may spend their entire life climbing the ladder of success only to reach the top and find that it was leaning against the wrong wall. What good is it to gain everything the world offers but lose the very thing that matters most? Some of the most powerful and successful people in history have openly admitted that even after achieving greatness, something was missing. They had the wealth that others envied, the influence that others craved, and the luxuries that others dreamed of, yet they felt a void that nothing could fill. Some turned to even greater pursuits of pleasure, hoping to numb the emptiness within. Others, despite having everything, fell into despair, realizing that the things they had built their lives upon were meaningless in the grand scheme of eternity. It is one of the greatest tragedies of life to spend years, even decades, chasing something that was never meant to satisfy. The world promises that if one can only acquire more, they will finally find peace, but it is a promise that never delivers. The more a person attains, the more they realize that fulfillment cannot be found in temporary things. Yet, many continue the cycle, convinced that the next achievement, the next success, the next purchase, or the next recognition will be the one to complete them. It is an illusion, and the sooner one awakens to this truth, the sooner they can begin to pursue what truly matters. There is a higher purpose beyond the pursuit of wealth, beyond status, beyond the fleeting approval of others. It is not found in temporary accomplishments, but in eternal significance. When a person reaches the end of their life, they will not measure their success by the size of their bank account or the number of people who admired them. They will measure it by what remains when everything else is stripped away. The things of this world are but shadows, fading and fleeting. The true measure of success is not in what is gained in the eyes of the world, but in what is invested in eternity. There is a moment in every life when time itself stands still, when everything once considered important fades into the background, and the weight of eternity makes itself known. Most people live as though this world is all there is, chasing after temporary pleasures, fleeting moments of happiness, and achievements that hold significance only for a brief time. They live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if the years ahead are endless, as if the concerns of today will matter forever. But there comes a time when eternity steps in, and in that moment, everything changes. The reality of eternity is not something that can be ignored. It is not an abstract idea, nor is it a distant future to be dealt with later. It is the most certain truth, the foundation upon which everything rests. A person may deny it, refuse to think about it, or attempt to drown it out with distractions, but it remains, waiting at the edge of time. It is a reality that does not bend to human desires, does not shift with the changing tides of culture, and does not disappear simply because one chooses to ignore it. Every moment of life is leading to a single, inescapable reality. The temporary nature of the world is evident everywhere. Time moves forward without stopping, wearing down all things. The strongest structures crumble, the greatest civilizations fall, the most powerful rulers pass away, and the most influential figures are eventually forgotten. Nothing lasts. The possessions that seem so valuable today will one day belong to another or be reduced to nothing. The status and reputation that people spend years building will fade. Even the closest relationships, the most cherished memories, and the deepest experiences will all be left behind when the final breath is taken. The things of this world, no matter how beautiful, are passing away, and nothing can change that truth. But while everything in the world fades, eternity remains unshaken. It is beyond time, beyond decay, beyond the reach of human hands. It does not diminish, does not shift, and is not subject to the forces that wear down all things. If this is true, then it raises the most important question a person can ask: why invest everything into what will be lost when there is something that will last forever? Why chase after the temporary when the eternal is within reach? It is easy to live for the moment, to focus on the things that can be seen, touched, and experienced now. The world teaches that fulfillment is found in immediate gratification, in accumulating wealth, in gaining influence, and in securing comfort. But all of these things, though they may bring temporary happiness, ultimately leave the soul empty. The hunger for something more is never satisfied by what is temporary, because the human soul was created for what is eternal. That longing for purpose, for meaning, for something greater than the passing pleasures of this world is the call of eternity. It is a whisper in the depths of the soul, a reminder that there is something beyond the visible, something more real than what can be touched or seen. One day, all will stand before eternity. In that moment, the things that once seemed so important will be revealed for what they truly were: dust in the wind. The wealth accumulated, the power gained, the pleasures pursued will have no weight, no meaning. What will matter is what was built upon the eternal, what was invested in what lasts beyond time. Every person will see with absolute clarity that eternity was always before them, always calling, always waiting. The only question is whether they chose to acknowledge it before it was too late. Two men walk through life, each with a different vision, each with a different pursuit. One man is consumed with the present world, building his life on what he can see, touch, and possess. He seeks security in wealth, validation and recognition, satisfaction and pleasure, and purpose and success. His days are spent working toward the next achievement, the next purchase, the next moment of admiration from others. He believes he is winning, that he is securing a future of comfort and happiness. But what he does not realize is that he is investing everything in what will one day vanish. He is storing treasures in a house built on sand, and when the waves of time come crashing in, everything he worked for will be washed away. The second man walks a different path. He sees beyond the present, beyond what is temporary. He understands that the things of this world are passing, that every achievement, every possession, and every moment of recognition will one day be gone. Instead of chasing what will perish, he invests in what will last. He does not measure his success by the standards of the world, but by the weight of eternity. His choices, his priorities, his pursuits, all are aligned with something greater than himself. He walks the narrow path, often unnoticed, often uncelebrated, but he is building something that will never be destroyed. The difference between these two men is not in their talents, resources, or opportunities. The difference is in their perspective. One is living for the moment, the other is living for eternity. One sees only what is in front of him, the other sees what is beyond. And in the end, when all is weighed, when all is revealed, their choices will determine what remains. Many believe they can balance both pursuits, that they can hold on to the world while also reaching for eternity, but the truth is, no one can serve two masters. No one can build their life on a foundation of sand while expecting it to stand in the storms of time. Every person must choose. Will they invest in what is passing, or will they invest in what endures? Will they seek after what fades, or will they pursue what cannot be taken away? It is not that the things of this world are inherently evil. Wealth, success, and recognition can all be used for good, but when they become the focus, when they become the purpose of life, they become a trap. They create the illusion of fulfillment while slowly draining the soul of what truly matters. A man can have everything the world offers and still have nothing. He can be surrounded by riches and yet be poor in the things that matter most. He can be admired by many and yet be unknown in eternity. The one who chooses to live for what lasts will not always be understood. The world will call him foolish, weak, unambitious. It will mock his choices, question his values, and pressure him to conform. But he knows something the world does not. He knows that everything around him is temporary, that no amount of success in this life can outweigh the loss of what is eternal. And so he continues undeterred, unwavering, building something that cannot be shaken. One day, everything will be laid bare. The accomplishments of men will crumble. The pursuits of this world will come to nothing, and only what was built on the eternal will remain. The difference between the two men will be clear, and the wisdom of choosing what lasts will be undeniable. Every person will stand before the weight of eternity, and in that moment, the value of their choices will be revealed. Some will have built on sand, and they will watch as everything is swept away. Others will have built on the rock of what is unshakable, and they will see that their labor was not in vain. A moment will come when everything is laid bare, when the illusions of this world fade away and nothing remains but truth. That moment is not a possibility, it is a certainty. Every person, no matter their wealth, power, or status, will one day stand before the one who weighs all things. In that moment, there will be no hiding, no pretending, no excuses. Every thought, every action, every motive will be revealed. The things that once seemed so important will mean nothing, and the things that were once ignored will be seen for what they truly were. The world does not often speak of this reality. It teaches people to live for today, to pursue pleasure, to focus on their own desires, and to seek after things that will not last. It tells them that as long as they are successful in the eyes of others, they have lived well. But what happens when time runs out? What happens when a person stands at the edge of eternity and realizes they spent their entire life chasing what is now meaningless? The things they worked for, the reputation they built, the wealth they accumulated, none of it will matter when they stand before the weight of eternal truth. There is a deception that has existed since the beginning of time, the belief that judgment is distant, that accountability is something to be concerned with later, that there will always be more time. But time does not wait. It moves forward unstoppable, bringing every person closer to the day when all will be revealed. The choices made in secret, the intentions behind every action, the priorities of the heart, all will be measured. Some will stand with confidence, knowing they lived for what mattered most. Others will look upon the reality before them and realize too late that they built their lives on things that had no weight in eternity. The temporary nature of the world is undeniable. The greatest kingdoms in history have fallen. The most powerful rulers have been reduced to dust, and the wealthiest individuals have left everything behind. No one escapes the reality that life is brief, that time cannot be controlled, and that eternity is coming. But despite this truth, many continue to live as if their days will never end, as if they can hold on to their possessions forever, as if their success will follow them beyond the grave. They build their lives on foundations of sand, ignoring the warnings that all things will one day be tested. When the moment of truth arrives, there will be no negotiations, no second chances, no opportunities to go back and change what has already been done. The weight of every decision will be felt and nothing will be hidden. Those who lived for themselves, for their own pleasure, for their own ambitions, will see the emptiness of their pursuits. They will realize that what they thought was gain was actually loss, that what they clung to had no lasting value. They will see that while they invested in the temporary, they neglected the eternal. But there will also be those who chose a different path, those who did not chase after what the world considered valuable, but instead lived with eternity in mind. They may not have been the most successful by earthly standards, they may not have been celebrated by men, but they will stand before the weight of truth and find that their lives carried eternal significance. They will see that while others built on sand, they built on something unshakable. While others lived for the moment, they lived for what lasts forever. There is no escaping the reality of what is to come. The temporary will be revealed as temporary, and the eternal will stand unshaken. Each person will see their life for what it truly was, and the weight of their choices will be undeniable. The question is not whether this moment will come, it is whether each person will be prepared when it does. There is a moment when all distractions fade, when the noise of the world grows silent, and a person is left with one undeniable truth, the choice they made with their life. This choice is not about wealth, success, or reputation, but about where they place their trust, their time, their devotion. Every person is given a limited number of days, a finite amount of time to decide what they will live for, and whether they will invest in what is temporary or what is eternal. Some believe they have forever, that they can wait until later to think about the things that truly matter. But time does not wait. and every second that passes is one that will never return. There is an urgency in this choice, though many do not recognize it. The world is full of distractions, offering countless things to pursue, each one promising happiness, fulfillment, and security. But these things are fleeting, momentary, unable to satisfy the deeper longing of the soul. People chase success, believing that once they reach a certain position or acquire a certain amount of wealth, they will finally be at peace. Others seek pleasure, indulging in whatever gratifies their desires, thinking that satisfaction is found in experience. Still, others pursue recognition, craving the approval of the world, measuring their worth by the opinions of others. But no matter how much they attain, the hunger remains, because what is temporary cannot satisfy what was made for eternity. Every day is an opportunity to choose what truly matters, yet many delay the decision. They tell themselves there will always be more time, that they can focus on deeper things later. But no one is promised tomorrow. Time moves forward, unstoppable, and no one knows when their final moment will come. The urgency is not meant to bring fear, but clarity. It is meant to awaken the soul to the reality that life is not just a series of random events, but a preparation for what is to come. The decisions made today determine what will remain when everything else fades away. Some hear the call of eternity and respond immediately. They recognize the truth, see through the illusion of the world, and choose to live with purpose beyond what is temporary. Others hesitate, torn between the comforts of the present and the weight of what they know is right. And then there are those who reject the call altogether, convinced that they can live for themselves without consequence. But regardless of what a person chooses, eternity does not change. It is not shaped by human opinion, nor is it dependent on how the world defines success. It remains unshaken, waiting for each person to reach the end of their days, where they will see, with absolute clarity, whether they chose wisely or wasted the time they were given. It is not enough to acknowledge the truth, action must follow. Many recognize that the world is fleeting, that its promises are empty, yet they continue to live as if they will never have to give an account for how they spent their days. They assume that small compromises do not matter, that distractions are harmless, that they can delay the decision till a later time. But the longer one waits, the more difficult it becomes to turn back. The heart becomes dull, the mind becomes entangled in the temporary, and the urgency that once felt strong begins to fade. That is why the choice must be made now, not later. There is no neutral ground. Each person is either moving toward what is eternal or further away from it. Every action, every priority, every decision is leading somewhere. Those who recognize this truth and live accordingly will one day stand with confidence, knowing they invested in what truly matters. Those who ignored it will look back with regret, realizing too late that what they thought was important had no weight in eternity. The choice is before every person, and the time to decide is now.